most welcome to Historiespanarna History Reconnaissance. This time we take a close look on the US M3-Lee medium tank. From the production lines of the Detroit Arsenal to the battlefields of Africa and Asia. The M3 was produced in two major patterns, the US called Lee and the British Grunt. More than 6,000 were produced and used by USA, Great Britain and even the Soviet Union. So, follow us and see the M3 produced at the Detroit Tank Arsenal, in action in Libya and Burma, and in a rare German benchmark test, pitted against the Panther tank. And please, like, share and subscribe, it means a lot to us. By 1940, the United States only had fewer than 400 tanks, the majority light tanks left over from World War I. The US Army desperately needed a new tank with a 75mm gun to take on the German Panther 3 and 4. The chassis of the M2 tank was the only available choice. It was impossible to install a 75mm gun in the M2 top turret, so the gun was placed in an offset sponson in the hull, giving it a limited traverse. In addition, it mounted a 37mm gun in the top turret and 4 30 caliber machine guns. It was a compromise, but the best that could be done at the time. In late 1940, production of the M3 began at the Detroit Arsenal tank plant, located in Warren, Michigan, the first manufacturing plant ever built for the mass production of tanks in the United States. And tanks were rolling out even before the plant was complete. 25% of all tanks produced in World War II in USA came out of this plant. Well, let's start producing. First, the rotary ring of the cupola, machined to size in the lathe. Measure twice, cut once. Then, cutting the teeth in the rotary ring for the motor-driven 37mm gun turret. Riveted armor. The rivets could shed on impact, bouncing around on the inside. A field fix was to weld these in place. All Lees had a turret with a 37mm M5 gun. A 30 caliber machine gun was mounted coaxially with the gun, and another in a small cupola mounted on top of the 37mm turret for the commander. The Wright R975 engine, selected for the M3-Lee, was also used in the M4 Sherman medium tank, the M7 Priest and the M18 Hellcat tank destroyer.
Step on it, Jank. The Nazis have airports in Sicily, and they're only an hour away.
Volunteer squadron of 3 M3 Grunts from the US 1st Armored Division, placed under British command, achieved several victories during fighting near Acroma in Libya on 11th of June 1942, the first Americans to engage German land forces in the war. The 75mm gun was operated by a gunner and a loader. The gun was laid on target by the gunner through geared hand wheels for traverse, 15 degrees left or right, in elevation plus 20 to minus 9 degrees. Sighting the gun used a periscope on top of the sponson, rotating with the gun. 46 rounds for the 75 was stored in the hull. One of the drawbacks of the 75mm gun was the limited traverse due to its sponson mount. Another was that the M3-Lee could not take a hull down position and use its gun at the same time. Despite its flaws, it was urgently needed by Great Britain, and in the newsreels was said to be a fearful dreadnought of destruction, a rolling fort to challenge the aggressors. The 37mm gun was aimed through the M2 mantlet-mounted periscope. It also sighted the coaxial machine gun. The turret was power traversed by an electro-hydraulic system with an electric motor providing the pressure for the hydraulic motor. This enabled a full turret rotation in only 15 seconds.
We must be the great arsenal of democracy. For us, this is an emergency as serious as war itself. We must apply ourselves to our task with the same resolution, the same sense of urgency, the same spirit of patriotism and sacrifice as we would show were we at war.
The appearance of the M3 in North Africa was a surprise to the Germans, who were unprepared for the M3's 75mm gun. The M3 could engage them beyond the effective range of the Panther III and the Pak-38 anti-tank gun. Still, the German 88mm flak gun in an anti-tank role was a threat that proved deadly. Grant and Lees served with British units in North Africa until the end of the campaign. Following Operation Thorch, the invasion of French North Africa, the US also fought in North Africa using the M3-Lee. And now, attention please, or should I say Achtung, to introduce this, a captured US Lee with German markings used in a propaganda benchmark test against the German Panther tank.
Waffen in der Erprobung. Der Panther beim Vergleichsfahren mit einem amerikanischen General Lee. In der Mitte der amerikanische Panzer. Über ein steiles Betonhindernis. Der amerikanische Panzer bezwingt es nicht und bestätigt erneut die in der letzten Zeit immer wieder gemachten Aussagen unserer Gegner, dass unsere Panzer und Waffen den ihren überlegen sind. Das Panzernahbekämpfungsmittel, die Panzerfaust. Eine dicke Stahlplatte wird glatt durchschlagen. Nicht minder ist die Durchschlagskraft des Panzerschreck. Auch diese überstarke Platte glatt durchschlagen.
"900 British-ordered M3 tanks were shipped to India and used by the British 14th Army, seeing action against Japanese troops and tanks in the Burma campaign. The M3 medium tank's main task was infantry support. In the Battle of Impal, the Imperial Japanese Army, equipped with their own Type 95 Hago light tanks and a handful of captured British M3 Stuart light tanks, encountered M3 medium tanks for the first time and were outgunned and outmatched by the better British armour. Almost 1,000 M3-Lee tanks were supplied to the Soviet Union through the American lend-lease program between 1942 and 43, and used by Soviet armored brigades. Designated as the M3S, S standing for Sredny, meaning medium. By mid-1943, 1,500 of their own T-34 tanks were built each month, and by then the outdated M3s were retired from frontline operations. A Red Army nickname for the M3 was allegedly a grave for 7 brothers. And to finish our story of the M3-Lee, the Iron Cathedral, with this mini-art model of the M3 called Lullabelle from the movie Sahara, the original 1943 version starring Humphrey Bogart.
That's all folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.